As I said in my top 10 good side commanders video, it's been a while since I've made a tier list, and rather than go through every single commander in the game, I'm just going to cut this down to my opinion on the top 10 evil faction commanders. Keep in mind this is just my opinion and is based on my experience on roleplay servers. I'm sure things are quite different on non-roleplay servers. Let's get into it. Alright guys, we'll start things off with number 10, and it's sort of a tie between Yusra and Gorbag, and that's dependent on whether or not Yusra has her unique item, as the Twin Daggers have an extremely powerful trait called War Dance, which gives your evil men, if your army is only evil men, which as Yusra, shocker it will be, it gives your army follow-up when it's composed of only evil men. Without these, I think she's basically a significantly worse Khaldun. However, with her Twin Daggers, she is a very deadly commander. And if you don't have her unique, I think it would have to go to Gorbag, at least in servers with elite skills, where Gorbag gets to run things like follow-up Reapers with all of his crazy orc buffs. Moving on to number 9, I went ahead and picked Grima, perhaps because I'm a huge fan of him, because he is a commander that can run Reapers. But again, in seasons with the elite skills, the fact that he can run follow-up Reapers with extreme efficiency is definitely a huge selling point. Also, he has probably the most consistent source of madness in the game via Wormtongue and Master of Mischief. Overall, he can be a huge pain to deal with, and he is very strong, especially if you're not prepared to deal with madness. Coming in at number 8, I went with Gothmog. This guy is sort of a jack of all trades as far as evil commanders go. You can spec him to do an absolutely absurd amount of siege damage. He can run alchemists with the crippled, which has a chance of giving your units maximum damage in any round of combat. He's, once again, I feel like there's a theme here. He's very good with Reapers thanks to things like Morgul Lieutenant and Orcish Warlord, and he can really run a variety of army compositions, well, as long as they're melee-based armies, which is most of evil anyway, just thanks to his skill tree. And I think that he scales quite well with high levels of respect because he has so many good skills in his skill tree. He just has a lot of tools in his toolkit, and I think he is overall one of the stronger evil side commanders in the game. And then moving on to number 7, this might be a little bit controversial. However, I chose the Undying. This is in part because Wraith's Cloak has one of the best effects, I think, of any unique item in the game. However, he is a T3 commander. Not many people can afford to take T3s to R10. And refining this thing so that it has higher and higher chances of madness is a very expensive proposition. However, this guy has a lot of really nice tools in his toolkit, kind of like Gothmog. He can completely shut off healing, which can be very powerful against good side factions. He also has a solid form of evasion via Undead Commander. Of course, as a Ring Wraith, he has the Ring Wraith skill tree, which allows him to, well, stun things through Nazgul Screech on the first round of combat, which is strong, but also beef up burn, poison, and focus damage. So overall, I think he's a little bit underappreciated in my opinion. Really nice toolkit on him as well. So going back to T1 commanders, we're going to go with my absolute nightmare, which is Khaldun. This guy is just absolutely unbeatable. That's a little bit of a joke, but good factions really, really struggle to deal with this guy. He just has an incredible amount of damage reduction thanks to Marshal of the East Mark, Evil Alliance, and Iron Guard. And plus, Easterling is effectively a damage reduction skill as well, because anytime he hits something, it reduces enemy stats, which includes attack. So an extremely high amount of mitigation. Plus, thanks to things like tribal tactics, he is able to allow his army to deal a pretty nice amount of extra damage. And when you take him to a really high level of respect, you can start investing points into the experienced warrior tree. Maybe you put a little bit into Spear Dancer. And to top it all off, he has a chance of stunning people and causing them to take extra damage. This guy is absolutely fantastic. Probably the best T1 commander in the game. Actually, I think it's safe to say that he is the best T1 commander in the game. I would definitely take him over Dwalin or Eowyn any day. Maybe I'm just salty because I run all cavalry armies and Khaldun completely shuts that down. But yeah, he is my pick for number 6 as far as evil factions go. Moving on to number 5, I've chosen Black Serpent. This very similar reasoning to Khaldun. He is very powerful with evil men, thanks to Haradrim and tribal tactics. He also has Evil Alliance, which is a nice damage reduction there. I don't know why it wouldn't click off of Evil Alliance there for a second. Horn of Herod makes his army able to deal a lot of damage in the early rounds, and early rounds of combat, as I've mentioned before, are the most important rounds of combat in this game. So he's, yeah, kind of like Khaldun, just a super good commander, nice amount of mitigation, nice amount of damage buff as well. And then number 4, oh how the mighty have fallen. The Witch King, in my opinion, he maybe could have even gone down on this list, to be honest, but I just wanted him to I wanted to put him at number 4, just out of respect at how he warped the metagame and how, if you're not prepared for him, he can still just completely, absolutely shred your army, thanks to the Ring Wraith title, the Nazgul Screech skill, and Convener combined with Alchemists. This guy's army can do the most incredible amount of burst damage in the early rounds of combat. If you don't have some sort of burn damage mitigation, thanks to high alert or equipment, you're just going to lose to this guy. So kind of like in the vein of Gil-galad, if you're prepared for him, he's not actually that bad. If you're not prepared for him, you just lose, and that's that. I have seen people experimenting more with some physical damage builds using Reapers, especially in the seasons where their elite skill gives them follow-up. But an absolute nightmare that guy is. I've seen him just completely crush 6, 7, 8 armies at a time, at least back in the day before people caught on to the fact that you can stack burn damage to pretty absurd levels. And coming in at number 3, we have Karoon. This is somewhat a shout out to my good friend Ranclast, who has loved this commander ever since his first season in the game. This guy is kind of like Khaldun on steroids. He has the Easterling tree, except in R5 he has Master of the War Chariot, which does a whole bunch of things, but importantly it gives evil men +2 attack, and halberdiers take even less damage from mounted units, making him kind of the perfect commander to counter the Theodens, Eomers, and Eowens that run amok on so many servers, as those are all very popular commanders. He also has the advantage of running evil men, thanks to tribal tactics, which does get around the Champion of the Light skill that White Council commanders, which seem to be like the majority of popular good side commanders. There's a lot of popular good side commanders that have Champion of the Light, which does not affect evil men. For anybody that doesn't know, Champion of the Light causes orcs, Uruk-hai, and trolls to take more damage. Evil Men is not on the list. This guy runs Evil Men, so he has a really nice spot in the metagame thanks to that. Number 2, potentially a contender for number 1, is a newcomer to the scene. Well, she's not really that new anymore. It's Sunnind, and this is because she might actually do more burst damage than the Witch King, which is saying a lot. And this is thanks to Haradrim tactics, which says damage dealt for orcs is increased for each allied evil men unit type present. It also gives evil men and orcs attack. And what you do is you run 2 evil men tanky units on her, and then you run like 4,000 Morgul Arbalests. There's just some absurd amount of Morgul Arbalests. And so you combine the Haradrim tactics on them with the damage buff from Inspiration, and she just does completely absurd early round damage. And she's another one of those commanders where if you're not prepared for her, she's just going to completely shred you. If you don't have something that can shut down those Morgul Arbalests, you're just going to lose in the first few rounds of combat. And coming in at number 1, like I said, maybe Sunnind is number 1. However, I have some PTSD from Sauron's last season, thanks to the Sith Warband. So I went ahead and put Sauron in the number 1 slot for evil commanders, and specifically the focus damage build of Sauron. There is a Madness build that uses Ring of Terror. However, just about everybody these days is running anti-madness commanders, but Sauron, with a high amount of focus through gear and all of his focusing damage abilities, can do an incredible amount of focus damage. And if you don't have focus protection, it's just another one of those cases where, sorry man, you just lose. Even with focus protection, he can deal a pretty absurd amount of damage. Also, all of that focus is going to make his army very tanky. Additionally, he doesn't have any specific troop type buffs, which means he can run evil men perfectly fine. I've even seen some ranged Saurons with Morgul Arbalests running around. So he has very flexible options when it comes to army composition. He's, in my opinion, like when I see a Sauron on the field, that's the last commander that I want to see, unless he's running the Madness build. When he's running the Madness build, I know for sure I can beat him, thanks to anti-madness. If it's the focus damage build, I'm probably just going to avoid that guy unless I happen to have my focus protection armor on my commander at that time. And even then, it's not a guarantee. Even then, it can still be a loss for me, a win for Sauron. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about my choices down in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.